Join the Wide Whale team May 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern for part one of our three-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident, where we will look at the tour and move-in lifecycle stages. We've built a data set of 400,000 Google reviews from residents of hundreds of top multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50. Using AI and topic sentiment analysis, get a unique perspective on resident preferences. Go to widewhale.com/data to sign up or find it on the revised community. That's widewhale.com/data.
Welcome to Leading Your Culture, brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Bill Nye. While serving the United States Air Force, I was selected to attend the U.S. Air Force Leadership School, which is still the foundation for many of my leadership beliefs. That experience set me on a course for a successful career in business, consulting, mentoring, training, and speaking. In this series, my guests will come from many disciplines to discuss the most serious and at times not so serious topics on leadership and culture. Well, welcome back. I'm really excited about today's conversation. We're talking today with Kara Rice, someone I've known for a really long time. And so it's great to see you and talk with you today. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. Anybody who has watched or listened to my podcast knows that I focus on leadership and culture. And so you work for a company called Swift Bunny. And it's okay to make fun of the name because I think even you guys make fun of the name, right?
For sure.
For those who don't know Swift Bunny, what do you do?
All right. Yes. Silly name, but serious mission. So yeah, we'll just get that out of the way right at the beginning.
Yeah,
but first of all, thanks for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it. And yes, you and I go way back. But here at Swift Bunny, we are focused on the employee experience. So we work with owners and management companies to survey their employees and figure out what's working well for them and what's not working well for them in order to uncover those opportunities for improvement. And the ultimate goal, Bill, is to help organizations drive down employee turnover. We want to help companies create workspaces that really work well for all of their stakeholders. So that means they're getting the best performance out of their team members, but they're also creating workplaces that satisfy associates so that they stick around.
Okay. So this is a very serious topic, and it's a very serious thing that you're doing. So Company A out there who wants to know how their employees really feel, what the real experience is like, the truth behind their culture, Swift Bunny is a company that can come in and say, we can help you with that because their employees are is one-on-one interviews, surveys only. How is this process? How does it go down?
Yeah, great question. So it's surveys only that we partner with the companies on. And it's different than probably other survey tools that folks might be exposed to in that we survey all year round. So a lot of times we'll talk to a prospective client and they may have experience surveying their team members, but typically they do it once a year or maybe even every other year. And this is really just not enough. When you think about the turnover rate in our business, I mean, can you imagine only surveying once a year? Probably half of the workforce wouldn't even be there by the time you got around to doing that survey again. So it's just not enough data.
Yeah, I have to stop you to say that imagine if the only time you really had a serious conversation about your relationship with your significant other was on Valentine's Day.
But yep. Right? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's just not enough.
Right. That would probably be a bad relationship. No matter how great you make Valentine's Day, the other 364 days of where you're unhappy or you're wondering how the other person feels, that would cause a lot of people to bail out of the relationship.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great analogy. I like it. And I'm going to relay that onto our sales team. Maybe they'll start using that in their pitches, Bill. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I've been told I'm pretty good with analogies.
That's good. Hey, if I may, if I may just explain a little bit further too. So we don't just stop with the surveys. It's about partnering with the leaders at the organizations that we work with to help interpret the data that comes back from those surveys and to help them figure out what they do next with it. So, asking questions is one thing, but really reviewing that feedback, figuring out what this feedback means for them and what they can do to move the needle on employee satisfaction. We take a very consultative approach with our clients and help them to make differences. So we're working with them hand in hand all the year through.
I would imagine for some people, sometimes that's tough. If
No question. Yeah.
if I'm ineffective as a leader, it's hard to sit in a room and have a conversation with somebody who's basically, in a very tactful way, of course, but saying to me as a leader, you're really struggling.
Well, leaders absolutely have to be open to this soul searching that comes with reviewing that feedback, because it is a little bit of an autopsy. You're trying to figure out, what's the culprit here? What is getting in the way of our team members feeling really satisfied here and ultimately sticking around? So you're right. You definitely sometimes uncover some uncomfortable truths, and leaders need to kind of get their arms around that and be willing to face it in order to make a difference.
So I have to call you out there. I hope it's not an autopsy, because you only do an autopsy after it's too late. They're dead.
Okay, maybe I'm not as good at
So,
analogies as you are.
so maybe it's more of a really in-depth physical
There you go. There you go. Yes,
to
that's better.
discover what's really going on in the body that may be harming us, and we have to work on if we want to live a long, healthy life.
Yes. Okay, I like
But
that. That's better.
sometimes it is an autopsy. I have a session that I deliver to my audiences. It's called Radical Feedback, and I give 13 points. And the 13th point is, don't allow yourself to become a defibrillator.
Jeez.
Sometimes you work with somebody so long and you want it for them so badly, but sometimes you just have to recognize that it's time to call it time of death.
Huh.
212 on May 7th.
That's
So
fun.
maybe sometimes it is an autopsy, but I'm gonna leave that one alone. So what are the so I love this, because I lead and I coach and mentor with a philosophy that leadership is a talent, and I compare it to singing. Do you sing?
Not professionally, maybe in the shower, in the car.
Okay,
Did a little
so
musical theater in high school. Does that count?
okay, there you go. So you can probably carry a tune, I would imagine, if you did
Yeah,
musical
reasonably well.
theater. What do your kids say when you sing? Do they join in? Do they applaud? Do they say, please stop?
They're pretty tolerant because I sing a heck of a
Okay.
lot better than my husband does. So if somebody has to sing, it's better that it's me.
So you sing better than your husband,
Yeah.
which really makes my point. Singing is a talent. There are people who are just more naturally gifted at it than others, right? And
Yeah.
then there are
Agreed.
those who are superstars. These are your Taylor Swifts, your Chris Stapletons, your Elton
Mhm.
Johns. They're on a whole different level from everybody else, right?
Yes.
I think leadership is a talent, just like singing. And I think
Mm.
that some people are okay. They can sing in front of their family and that people don't boo them. There are some
Right.
people who are superstar leaders. There's like nobody like them. And then there are some people that just aren't, it's just not in their wheelhouse. They just
Mhm.
don't grasp the concepts of great or effective leadership. But I do believe that, like singing, we could hire a really good coach and we can make you a better singer. And maybe you become like the best karaoke singer in your local karaoke bar. Or maybe you become somebody that actually starts getting paid to sing at weddings and things like that, right? It takes you to a different level. And I think you can coach people into being a better leader. But I still think it's a talent, and some people just have a natural talent for it that is above other people. And I
Mhm.
don't hear anybody else ever saying that, but that's my personal conviction.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think some arrive at leadership with some gifts. But
Right.
absolutely, those who are willing to put in the work can
Can get
improve their
better.
skills at it. Yes.
Absolutely. So we're definitely on the same page there. And I think we don't like to admit that leadership is a talent, because then it's admitting that, yeah, we may have people who have the title, but don't have the talent. But because of their longevity, their tenure, their experience, we just put them in these positions, and then all of a sudden they make everybody around them miserable.
Well, and that's the typical kind of career path in multifamily, isn't it? If
Sure
you
it is.
want to progress, you, in most cases, have to take up on some leadership responsibilities. So even if you might not be well suited for it, that's the way to advance your career.
Right. Absolutely. So what's the survey? What's the data telling you? What are you seeing? Give us the pulse of the workforce.
Okay. Okay. So we recently published a report, and it's our third annual, which we call it our Employee Engagement Risk Report.
Which I've
And
actually
what we
read.
do,
I read the
oh,
entire report.
great. Thank you.
Of course.
Um, so it can be helpful to look at what's not working well for associates, because that's where you see the greatest opportunity for improvement. So that's why we kind of focus on the risks here, what's not working well. One of the first ones, you've read the report, so you won't be surprised, but at the top of the list is compensation. That's one of the things
Mhm.
that folks are struggling with and not satisfied with. That one surprise you at all?
No, no. In fact, in a previous role, when I was running burger communities out of Pennsylvania, we entered the best places to work competitions every year, and I always publicly said to the team, if compensation isn't our lowest scored category, then we're doing something wrong. If it's training, if it's something else, we
Mhm.
got a problem, because even if you're really good and fair and even above market, everybody wants to make more. It's a natural
Right.
desire, right? Abundance. Everybody wants abundance. My team wins the World Series. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm
Mhm.
not happy that we win the look, I'll be thrilled if we win the 2024 World Series, but what do I want the Yankees to do in 2025?
Mhm.
Right? I want them to win again and
Right.
again. And if they win every World Series for the rest of history of baseball, I won't get tired of it. My point is, people desire abundance, and that
Mhm.
and the most impactful abundance that we think, even though I think love and safety are super important, probably more important than money, but I think money then would be number three behind that. So no, I'm not surprised by that.
Right. And that's tops the list every year that we have studied it.
I
So
think
to
you
your
should.
point, people rarely do folks think that they are compensated enough for the work that they do. However, I don't think we can simply dismiss that, because I do think it is,
Agreed.
we just need to be mindful of the fact that it is top of mind for associates. And particularly, I think in the world in which employees are working in right now, we know that they're being heavily recruited from not just competitors within rental housing, but every other business is trying to poach our people away. And they're doing that by offering a lot of carrots, right? Higher wages
More money.
and greater
Mhm.
benefits and all of that.
Yeah.
So, for that reason alone, we really do need to tune into what employees want and need, because otherwise, we run the risk of great people slipping out the door.
Yeah. Look, every business, I don't care what your business is. I don't care if you make cardboard boxes. Every business is looking for great people, right? Every
Yep.
business. And I love your point that even though I believe that compensation should be your lowest ranked category, I don't
Mhm.
think that means we should just dismiss it. Okay, it's lowest, move on. No, 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 no. I think you should constantly be talking about how can we, be better market leaders in terms of base pay, in terms
Mhm.
of how we handle our pay increases, these are our bonuses, all of that. I don't think you
Mhm.
should ever dismiss it, because I'm going to tell you, if leaders dismiss it, your team will never dismiss it, because it's
No,
how they survive fundamentally.
It absolutely is. And it also comes down to a perception of fairness. It's not just that associates want to get a fat paycheck, but they want to feel like they are fairly compensated.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that's been a bigger issue in the last couple of years than previously. And that's because so many teams are running short staffed. So the folks who are there are carrying the extra burden of doing, maybe a job and a half because there's been an empty seat for so long. And that starts to feel unfair to people. They want to be
Yeah.
compensated for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then you add on top of that, the cost of filling up your gas tank and the cost of buying your
Right,
groceries.
right,
Inflation is choking us, right? Our
right.
anyone who is carrying any kind of insurance, automobile insurance, medical insurance, we've seen those costs go through the roof. So yeah, but that's a great point, Kara, because I've always tried to help my leaders understand that life is not fair, and I could give a
Mhm,
hundred examples of how life is not fair. But leaders should always operate with a sense of fairness.
mhm,
And I think operating with a sense of fairness is different than saying I'm going to make life fair. You can't make life fair.
mhm.
Life is not fair. One of the greatest human beings on earth was my father, and I miss my dad every day. And I could say it's not fair that my dad is gone. He was such a great guy who did so many amazing things for so many people. But life is not fair. And, but that doesn't mean that you don't operate with a sense of fairness. And
Mhm.
if you operate with a sense of fairness, even though people want to make more, they understand that you're trying to be fair in your approach.
Right. Right.
And that
That's absolutely right. And in terms of fairness, if we can look at that for just one more moment, we do hear some feedback from team members saying, on the one hand, I hear all these positive reports from the company about how successful the company is,
yeah,
but I'm not feeling that in my paycheck. So how is
yeah,
that fair?
yeah,
So, yeah, so we need to be careful about that kind of stuff as well.
yeah, that's a great point. I have always led with a very strong sort of motto, and that motto is we win together, we lose together. If the company does well, we all do well. And if the company's doing poorly, we're all doing poorly. We win together, we lose together, and try to really lead with that as an example. That's why I go to trade shows and people want me to drop my ticket or my card in, to win their prize. And I always say, nope, I'm never going to take your prize because I'm very lucky. I've reached the executive level. I'm well compensated, but I've got people working for me that make, far less than what I make. And my goodness, nothing would make me happier than to see those people win your prize.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't, I don't put myself in a position to ever take from another person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure does.
Okay. So continuing, this is good. I
Um,
love it.
Yeah, all right. So moving beyond compensation, one of the other things that leads the list in terms of things that are frustrating team members, communication problems. Those on site say, we don't get enough information from the leaders in the organization. We have no idea what's going on, why it's happening, why we're being asked to do this or that. We just don't know. We don't know what's happening. But it's not just the on-site team members. The thing that's really fascinating about this, Bill, is one of the groups that has the highest level of dissatisfaction with communication. It's the regional managers.
Right. I saw that. That jumped right out of the pages when I read it.
It was such a surprise to me because I feel like regionals are more in the know. They have more conversations and more communication with the
And they're saying they're
executive
not.
leaders. But, I guess my perception is wrong. I would have thought that they're getting more information than those on site teams because they're that bridge. But in the past year, we have heard that the regionals feel like they really are not getting as much information as they need. And then, of course, they're caught in the middle because they've got to support those on-site teams. So they need that information. They're being asked a lot of questions by the on-site teams, but they also have to report up to the leaders. So yeah, they're just stuck in the middle and feeling stretched a little too thin.
I've always tried to lead with a strong conviction to this point that before we roll out any initiatives, we bring in the regional team and explain it to the regional team and answer all of their questions. Help make sure they understand the why. Go through that with them first. Get their buy-in. And even if they don't agree with it, at least they understand it before it gets rolled out to the people on the front line. And then we roll it out, because the people on the front line aren't going to reach out to me and say, "Hey, CEO, what is this about?" They're going to reach out to the regional. And if the
For sure.
regional's hearing it at the same time the on-site team's hearing it, I think that's a problem. So I've always had a strong conviction that the regional should hear it first, discuss it, talk through it, understand it, ask their questions. And so when it gets rolled out, they get pelted with 100 questions. They're prepared. They understand it. They've asked those same questions themselves. They have an answer. They can help then get the buy-in of the frontline employees, because they're a week, 2 weeks ahead of the rest in the organization hearing about it. And I suspect that is not a common practice. Maybe, and maybe your data is showing this, but it could be that people are afraid of, well, if I share it with this team and we're not ready to roll it out, somebody's going to leak it, and then it's going to get out, and then it's going to be a big mess. And to me, that's just a complete lack of trust. If you have the right trust in place and the right team, you're not going to have those fears and concerns.
This episode is brought to you by Widewale, the reputation partner for BH, Avenue 5, Trilogy, and more. Join Widewale on May 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern for event number 1 in our 3-part virtual event series, Voice of the Resident. We will be looking at in-depth topic and sentiment analysis from 400,000 Google reviews from residents of the largest multifamily groups, including the NMHC Top 50. Throughout the series, we will report on resident preferences and trends found in reviews by lifecycle stage, retention, residency, and for our first event, tour and move-in. You'll leave with insights to optimize your operations, creating better resident experiences and driving better reviews. Put your dollars to work in the right places. Hear it directly from the source, the words of 400,000 residents. Go to widewale.com/data to sign up, or find it on the revised community in virtual events. Attend live or watch on demand. That's widewale.com/data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the other thing that's happening in a lot of organizations, Bill, is silos. Where maybe the tech team knows what's happening about project A, but the operations team hasn't been included in the loop. Or the tech team is making decisions, but they're not including the operations team who has insights that they could really need over there. They might make a different decision if they had invited operations to the table, for example.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Silos are great for storing grain, but they're not so good in
And
this
that's about
organization.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a farm boy, so we had a silo on our farm, so I know when it's used properly, a silo is a great thing, but in business, it's almost never a great thing.
It's
So
not.
that's a good point.
And we just hear a lot of feedback from team members saying, I don't know what's happening over there, and why doesn't anybody tell me? And then, of course, that leads to distrust. And also it causes people, in the absence of clear communication, what they do is they make up stories. And those
That's
stories are
right.
never good. They
That's a
worst
good
case
point.
scenario.
That's
They
right. We
start to
always
think,
think the worst. We assume the worst.
absolutely, nobody's telling me this because, and then they invent something sinister behind the lack of communication, and bad things happen. So
Yep.
we're
Now you have the
constantly,
snowball.
right, we're just constantly advising clients that whatever you are doing in terms of communication, you've got to do more of it, even if it feels redundant to you, and you've got to use multiple methods, because some people read email, some people never read their email. Some people will
True.
watch the video that somebody records, somebody's never going to watch a video. So you just have to do it in a lot of different methods. to try to get your information out there.
Yeah. Your husband's name is Scott?
It is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, with you and Scott, you mentioned trust. I've forever said that no relationship could withstand an absence of trust. No relationship. How long
Mm-hmm.
have you and Scott been together?
Gosh, we are approaching 30 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if all of a sudden you could no longer trust Scott,
Mm-hmm.
how that would impact the relationship. And
Oh,
there's no
absolutely.
more sacred relationship than family, right? Family is the most sacred, intimate relationship. And yet we see families break apart because of lack of trust. So imagine in the workplace when there's no trust. That's not your family. It's an easier divorce. It's an easier separation because, you know, that's not your husband. That's not the person you've built a life with. And so when that trust is absent, no wonder that we're seeing such tremendous turnover because we're not communicating, as you said, people are creating their own scenarios. It's destroying the trust. And of course, they're sharing their conspiracies with others. So
Right.
that lack of trust, that distrust begins to spread. And then the next thing you know, we turn around and like, all we're doing constantly is recruiting and hiring, recruiting and hiring, recruiting and hiring.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that,
Bookkeeper.
of course, has a very negative impact on customer service.
Yeah.
Because if you've got disgruntled employees, customers feel that. And short staffing, of course, that impacts the customer experience dramatically.
Yeah. Look, my local coffee shop, when I walk in and Brittany's working behind the counter, I know I'm in good hands. Brittany's going to make the drink perfectly. A couple of days
Mm-hmm.
ago, I went in and new guys there, a kid named Frank. And Frank swore he'll remember my drink and it'll be what I want every time. I won't have to tell him what I want. And he made my drink and I get home and I take the first sip and it's not what I ordered.
Mm.
I'm like, I don't trust Frank. So
Nope.
you're right. As a customer, that familiarity with the employee
Yep.
really matters to us as customers. From a silly thing like a cup of coffee to our housing, servicing our car, whatever the case might
Right.
be. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know that because you've worked on site and you've worked on the service end of the business. So
Yeah.
residents care deeply about having someone they can trust in their home.
Right. When I knocked on the door and I've got my tools with me, there's Bill. He's going to fix this and he's going to be
Mhm.
friendly. He's going to clean up after himself. He's
Right.
not, if I leave, he's not going to open my refrigerator and make himself a sandwich.
Right. Right.
I'm not going to
And
go in
then
and
on
use
the
the toilet.
no, no, never use the toilet.
Right.
But on the office side, when there's a changing of the guard there, when there's turnover, residents get so frustrated and they feel like, oh no, but she knew my story. And now I have to start all over again
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
explain my story all over again. And they don't want to have to do that.
So the communication thing, this is huge, but it's not impossible to fix, right?
I agree. It takes a concerted effort and effort at every level. So I think we can see clients who have had good success with some initiatives that begin at the corporate level. So, for example, they do more all hands meetings. And I know meetings are kind of a dirty word. Everybody thinks that their life has too many meetings, but I really am a strong believer that you have to have meetings. And it's all about how effective those meetings are. Meetings can
Right.
be a time waster, but they don't
Right.
have to be.
Right.
But we've seen clients have great success with all hands company meetings as frequently as once a week. We actually have a client that has every person join in a meeting like this one with cameras on, and to talk to the executive leaders on a weekly basis. And it's
Wow.
made a huge difference.
Yeah. Listen, I think in a lot of cases, meetings are overdone and meaning that people have meetings that have no real purpose and lead to no
Right.
outcome. And that's a complete waste of time. One of the best books I ever read was written by Patrick Lencioni. He actually is my favorite author. And Lencioni wrote a book called Death by Meeting. And
Right.
it's about how, so I don't know if have you read the book?
I haven't read that, but I'm familiar
Brilliant
with
book.
that premise. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole idea behind that is that we are destroying our organizations by having pointless, meaningless meetings
Yeah.
that accomplish nothing. But you're right, when they're done right, with purpose, with an outcome and a goal in mind, and they're succinct, you get to the point, you land the plane, people appreciate it, right?
Yeah. And
Shouldn't be
it's a
that
skill
hard.
set. It's a skill set. And I remember, I think back to when I was first a property manager and I was required to conduct the weekly staff meeting, but I didn't have any guidance and I didn't have any innate knowledge about how to do that effectively. So I was terrified of it, first of all, because I didn't know how to do it. And I hadn't come from an environment that had staff meetings. So I didn't even really have a model to follow. So anyway, all of that to say, we could do a better job with teaching our leaders at every level how to conduct effective meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. That's a leadership coaching approach that is almost completely absent, that people don't
Mm-hmm.
teach their leaders how to have a meeting. I have a couple of rules with every meeting I have. One is no electronic devices are allowed, no phones, nobody opens their laptop. And I always tell the team, if the meeting is worth having, it's worth paying attention. If it's not worth paying attention, then don't have it.
Yep.
And as you know, electronic devices are a huge distraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then my other rule is number one, disagree. I don't care who's speaking. If you disagree, then disagree. Everybody should feel safe and empowered to disagree. But if you disagree, you must speak up. You can't disagree in silence. One of the worst things people do is they leave a meeting, then they go to somebody else and say, "Oh, this is a terrible idea. I can't
Right.
believe we're going to do this." Well, you didn't say a word in a meeting, and if this fails, then this is on you for keeping your mouth shut. So speak up. So disagree, speak up, and then number three, commit. In the end, no matter what we decide, you walk out of that meeting, everybody's committed to it. And again, if you walk out and say, so, Bill wants us to do ABC, that says to the team, you're not on board. You're not committed to it. So why should they be committed to it? You walk out and you say, so we had a meeting and here's what we decided. Here's what we agreed to do. We're all bought in with that approach, right? Shouldn't be that hard. Okay. So I try to keep these at 30 minutes and we're approaching 30 minutes and that's just flown by. So communication is a big one. Give us a couple other things that your surveys are showing that organizations really need to, other than hiring Swift Bunny, what are some things that organizations and leaders really need to be paying attention to today?
Okay, so one other that is a very big one for team members. Vast majority of multifamily employees are interested in moving up and they want to know that they have an opportunity to do that within their organization. And we've already talked about this, Bill, that there are opportunities everywhere in the world right now. So that's part of the temptation for folks, I think, to consider other employment because it's murky to them what it will take in order to get promoted within their own organizations. Not only that, they see that new hires are coming in from outside of the organization. And that's not great for morale when they see that happening. And they never had an opportunity to put their hand in the air and say, I want to be considered for that. So I think that companies are really well served if they're very clear about defining career paths for their people, what it takes to get promoted.
Yeah.
And if they are also, they've got systems in place to communicate those open positions to all of their team members. So team members are very aware of what the opportunities are. They shouldn't have to go search for the Glassdoor listing or the Indeed listings to see if there are open positions within their company. They should be the first to know, and they should be given the first opportunity to apply for those promotions.
Sometimes that happens. Listen, again, going back in a previous life for me, one of the things I talked about constantly in our executive meetings was what do our culture had become so good, so strong, so free of weeds and was thriving to the point to where nobody wanted to leave. Nobody was ever going to leave. And I said all the time, how do we keep our the people who are ready for that next step? How do we keep them engaged? Because they're looking around and they're saying, nobody above me is going to leave. They're never going to leave. So how do we, what's here for us? And it was a struggle to try and challenge those folks because, the regionals weren't leaving, the vice presidents weren't leaving, the directors weren't leaving. So it can be a challenge. But yeah, I have this conversation with people all the time outside, people who reach out to me just for a little bit of advice or mentoring. I'm stuck and I'm ready and I don't see it where I am. So what do I do? So yeah, I see that as being a big challenge for employers for sure. That's a great point.
Yeah, it is. And I think, first of all, that's a good problem that you had, that people were so
It's a good
happy
problem.
in your organization that they were sticking around.
Yeah.
So that is a good problem. On the other hand, not great if you're going to lose folks who are eager to move up to the next step and there's just no opportunities for them. One of the things that I would suggest is to recognize that that can happen and to make it possible for those folks to leave on good terms. You
Absolutely.
understand that you don't have the
Yep.
opportunity that they're
That's
seeking.
right.
So support them in their
Yep.
efforts to go find it someplace else and always leave that door open that they may bounce back to in the
1000%.
future. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good for you. Yep. Absolutely. That's what I used to say all the time is that let's develop them so that they're ready, whether it's here or with one of our competitors. If you truly care about people, then you want what's
Yep.
best for them. And
Yep.
you will help the bird leave the nest and you will applaud them and cheer them on. You got this, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And,
For
and
sure.
those are the people who, when those opportunities come up in your organization, they're the first ones knocking on your door saying, I'll do anything to come back because it was
Mm-hmm.
such a beautiful place to work.
And that really is the marker of a healthy organization when you have those folks that we call boomerangs who come
That's
back
right.
to you
That's
for
what we
a
call them.
second time. Hmm?
Yeah, we used to give you a boomerang when you left as
No
one of your
way.
going away gifts. Was we gave you a boomerang.
Oh, I love that, Bill. I love that. And then it's a little
Yeah,
bit of a promise. Like we already
that's
know.
right.
We already
That's
know we
right.
haven't seen the last of you yet.
That's right. It's our promise to you that you're always welcome back at any time. I used to always say you will forever be a part of us.
Love that. Love that.
Okay?
All right. Can I give you one more pointer? Do we have time?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have time. This is really good.
Okay. All right. So the last thing that I want to make sure we touch on is as an industry, we've really got to get better with how we onboard people to their new
Oh,
roles.
oh
Um,
man.
that is
Uh,
just a real source of friction, and we're not doing a good job of it. And as a consequence, we're seeing a tremendous amount of preventable turnover in that first 90 days of employment.
yeah. Here,
And
boy, I'm
it's really a
telling you,
crying shame.
oh man,
Work so hard to find those people. It's not easy to find those people.
right?
And then we screw it up.
So you have three children. You have Ethan and then your other two. Their
Mhm.
names, let's make them
Yes,
famous.
my daughter is Grace, and our
Grace,
younger son is Owen. Mhm.
Owen. Okay. So when Owen was ready to drive, and I use the word ready very loosely, when Owen was ready to drive, did you at 14 or 15, at 16, did you just go out and buy him a car and give him the keys
My
and say, no
gosh.
driver's ed, nothing, just say, because, you know, look, you've been in the car for 16 years. You should know what to do by now.
Right,
Here are the keys.
right.
But that's what we do in business. We hire people and we just give them the keys. And then when they crash the car, we say, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with them? No, what's wrong with us that we would do that? We wouldn't do that with our children. Why do we do that with our team? It's absurd. Sorry, I'm
It
passionate
really
about
is absurd. Yeah.
it.
No, that one hits home too, because we're in the throes of teaching Owen how to drive right now. He sits for his license exam next month.
So then you know exactly what I'm.
Oh,
But he's got to
yes.
go. He's going through an orientation. He's going through an onboarding. He is making the transition from a passenger to the driver, and there has to be an onboarding, an orientation, a process to get him there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing that we've got working against us right now as employers is just the state of the labor market right now. I saw a stat, and this is not a Swift Money stat. It was, I believe it came from Gallup, that when folks accept a new position, chances are they have been offered up to as many as 5 other roles. So when somebody says yes to your job offer and then they start with you and it is chaos, they might jump and
That's right.
consider one of those other job offers because, yours was not all that they thought it was going to be.
That's right. I call it the ABC Bachelor Rose Ceremony phenomenon.
Yes.
Where we're asking a man to narrow it down to one when for several weeks he's had 25 women saying, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me. And so then all of a sudden the first sign of trouble, like, oh, I can't believe I gave her a rose. I'm done with her. I should have kept somebody else. And that's what's happening, is that they know they have options. And that once they accept the rose, first sign of trouble, they throw the rose down and they run for the hills because somebody else has been batting their eyes saying, please pick us.
Yep. So it's a real time of vulnerability, and we need to just really pour more resources, I think, into creating a experience that is satisfactory and helps people to become effective, helps to get them plugged in and quickly get the knowledge and skills that they need in order that they feel confident. Because when they don't feel confident, then they start thinking about other options and heading for the exits.
100%. Golly, you know what? First of all, you've set the record for being the longest podcast host. That we have we've broken the record by about 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
And I feel like it's not enough time. I feel like this conversation needs to continue. And so I'm setting the table, hoping that you'll come back and that we can continue this conversation, because I think we could talk about this for a really long time. And I think I think the audience in hearing this, they want to know more. They want to learn more, but also think that they should reach out and talk to the folks at Swift Bunny about, what you guys do, because you're phenomenal and nobody does it better. And I mean that sincerely.
Well, I appreciate that. And absolutely, I look forward to the sequel.
Yeah, there will be a sequel. Well, Kara Rice, Swift Bunny, thank you so much for having us. Congratulations on Ethan's recent graduation from Florida State University. I know how that feels. I'm a little farther down the child rearing road, but I know how that feels when they start to graduate from college. And you can move away from that tuition, at least temporarily, until they go on to to get their graduate degree or their doctorate, and sometimes that's in the cards. But great to see you. Thank you for this engaging conversation. I have no doubt that the audience is going to really enjoy this, and you've helped make my podcast more popular. I might go from 5 viewers up to 10 just because of you. So
I hope that's the case. Yes. It's been a real pleasure, Bill. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Good to see you. Take care.
You too.
Well, thank you for tuning in. I hope today's conversation left you with a fresh perspective on leadership and culture. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Want to hear from other industry speakers whose goal is to bring along the next generation of leaders? Then log on to multifamilymedianetwork.com, where you'll meet some of the most innovative voices in the industry.